How did we get to this position, Professor Piketty? Because there was relatively little inequality from the end of the Second World War until the 70s. The middle class made big gains during those decades, bought houses and cars and so on. Why was it so much lower at that time, and then it started to shoot up in 1980?
It has a combination of factors. Certainly, the large shocks that were induced by World War I, the Great Depression, World War II, contributed to a reduction of the large wealth inequality that we had prior to World War I. Now, the policy changes that were induced violent shocks also played a very large role. So, the rise of progressive taxation, the rise of the welfare state, the rise of mass education made society more equal in the 50s, 60s, 70s. Then starting in the 80s, you have a combination also of different factors. So in some countries, like particularly in the United States and to some extent in other English-speaking countries, you have a very sharp decline in tax progressivity. This is the Reagan-Thatcher revolution. And I think this has contributed to completely change the pay-setting process at the very top end of large corporations. So, top managers have started to sometimes to put a lot of energy are trying to raise their own pay, and because this was more worth it than, when the top rate were 70-80%, as they were from the 30s to the late 70s. But, other factors have also played a role, unequal access to education, so the rate of growth of the fraction of each generation going to college and going to university has started to stop growing in the US in the 80s. And here there are important differences, with Canada and with European countries. So it's not the same trend everywhere.
Would the decline in the power of the trade union movement be a factor in that?
Oh, yes, certainly. And you have much less of a role for the unions in the services and in manufacturing. And you can see that in recent years, many countries have probably to try to compensate for the decline of unions, have tried to use minimum wages more than they used to. So, in Germany or in Britain, there used to be no national minimum wages. And in the past 10 years, in those two important countries, this was actually introduced.